I'd like to call to order the Monday, November 22nd, 2021 regular school board meeting in the Beacon City School District. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, please also stand for a moment of silence for Joseph R. Rotunda, who served as courier for the Beacon City School District for many years. Thank you. Kelly, roll call, please. Delayed. Delayed.
Mr. Galloway?
Here.
Ms. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Tseng?
Here.
Mr. Lake?
Here.
Mr. Wolf?
Here.
Ms. Stadler?
Here.
Ms. Stewart?
Here. Matt, can you review the fire exits, please?
The exits are in the back of the LGI.
Thank you. We're going to start with open to the public. I don't see anyone in the audience. Is there anyone on Zoom that would like to make a public comment? Seeing none, our workshop tonight is postponed to a future meeting, so we're going to go straight to executive session. Can I please have a motion to adjourn to executive session to review the employment history of a particular individual, to review collective bargaining with Beacon Teachers Association, and the board will return in about
Anthony, so moved.
half hour. Thanks.
Second.
Anthony, Flora. Comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. Wait, but are we? Yes, I'm in favor, so it passes 7-0. So we'll be back in about a half hour. We do have 2 changes to the agenda. Actually, I think we have the workshop scheduled or will be rescheduled. Non-instructional personnel agenda item 11.04A has been removed, and Flora emailed the board earlier tonight to add something to new business. Are there any parent groups or student school presentations? None in the audience. Looks like none online. Matt, superintendent's report.
Thank you, Meredith. So just a couple of announcements and sharing of information. My COVID case emails, unfortunately, have been going out on a daily basis for about the last week and a half. So cases are on the increase in Dutchess County. They're on the increase kind of across the county. We've seen that increase here in the Beacon City School District. We're not seeing spread still in the district. It's really coming, again, the cases are coming from the outside. Parents have done a really great job communicating with us, keeping their children home when they're sick, really reducing exposure. The cases for sure have been on the rise in the last week. So after Thanksgiving, it's not going to be the Monday after Thanksgiving, but we will be able to implement test to stay probably a few days after Thanksgiving. Later that week when we get back, we're still working on securing enough tests. But just briefly, test to stay allows a student who has no symptoms, but a student who may be considered a close contact of someone who had COVID-19. That allows the student to be rapid tested every morning and allows the student to keep coming to school. So the number of students that we've quarantined this year is much, much less than years prior. That's based on the changes with the CDC rules and the New York rules. But we will be able to implement test to stay. We might do a combination of our head nurse helping us out, and the Dr. Smoller and the village apothecary folks. They've been doing our employee testing for the last month and a half, so they may also help us with test to stay as well. And so we're excited to get that going. I shared the county has also endorsed testing out of quarantine. I shared that information in my superintendent email on Friday of last week, and so that is a test that someone would have to secure on their own, but it does enable all individuals to test out of quarantine earlier than the 10 days, which is another great change. And then the last part, we're also going to be working with Dr. Smoller. Probably it will take us the second week after Thanksgiving to get this going, is to have optional testing for students. So he tests our employees on Thursday. So what we would do is we'd add a couple strands for students to get tested with a rapid test if they so choose. Obviously, parents would have to sign off on that and get approval for us to do that. So we're going to be adding some of those things in. Some are changes. We did try to do some testing last year. It's a little harder this year since we're in school full time, so we do need to rely on some outside folks to help us do that. And so that's just COVID stuff that we are working on. I know when I send the emails out on a daily basis, it gets much more in people's minds. And we still really do feel school is a safe place to be for staff and students. And everybody's really been doing a good job, complying with things and doing what they need to do to keep everyone safe. My other update is just we're excited to be sending out our first Bulldog Bulletin tomorrow. It's our we are going to do a monthly newsletter, so our kickoff is tomorrow. So I guess with this kickoff being at the end of November, it's going to be kind of towards the end of every month until I can kind of get that timeline straight. But it's just we're taking it as an opportunity to just share some of the great stories from the district, kind of across all aspects of what we do, both celebrating students, employees, community members. So we're excited to be posting that on the website tomorrow and sending it out to everyone who gets my email. And we'll also, BOCES will print out some paper copies for us to have, like in every school, if people want to grab a paper copy as well. So that's my updates for tonight.
Matt, for the
Yeah.
state to stay in school, for the test to stay,
Yes.
is the district pay for those tests, or does that fall upon the family?
Test to stay is actually mostly provided to us by the county.
So
So it's really no cost right now to the district. I think where the concern is the county has a certain amount of funds paying for all this, and so there's some worry, like at the end of this year, if the county runs out, who's paying for it? But right now, the county has assured us that they either are providing us with the test or paying Dr. Smoller to do it. So it's completely funded by the county. I think the county's using federal money to do it. So test to stay is something that we would run. I know this stuff gets confusing. Testing out of quarantine is different. Testing out of quarantine is you can leave quarantine on day 7 if you get a test on day 5, right?
Yeah.
5 or 6. That you would have to do on your own. It's too complicated for us to offer testing to those folks. But we do, a couple of the districts in Dutchess have started with test to stay, and we want to join them. So we hope to join in the next week or two.
in the test for the staff that are non-vaccinated, is that at district cost or is that county?
That is county costs. The county's covering all of this.
Okay.
Yep.
Follow up on that. What's the update on the percentage total staff who are currently vaccinated?
I don't have the exact number, but it has gotten when we started our collection, and this was, I think, 6 to 7 weeks ago, was 73%, and I think we're at 80 now. 81, 82.
Thank you.
So people are either, changing their minds or whatever. So the number we get a handful of vaccination cards every week. So the number's going up.
Thank you.
Matt, I wondered if you have any update on the late issue at the high school since the road closure? Is that continuing to be about the same problem, or is it getting a little better?
I have not had a chance to have an in-depth conversation. I do, from what I'm gathering, people are adjusting to it and getting used to it. For the first few days, I know for sure we had an uptick in the number of late students at the high school. I do think that's gone down, and people are adjusting, and I think basically leaving earlier to get there. But I can provide data to the board. I just haven't pulled it.
Okay, committee reports and board comments. Anthony?
Sure. So the curriculum committee met on Thursday, November 18th here in the LGI room in person. They discussed the professional learning day that happened on November 2nd. They looked at areas of improvement, and then they looked at areas that worked really well. Then they discussed the curriculum mapping. They're using an Atlas Rubicon mapping software. The mapping committee will begin in January, and it will go through the summer of 2022. Mapping will be ongoing each year. Sorry, my watch was commenting on my comments.
You've gone too long.
Can't do that.
That happens when I'm on the phone
Talking.
sometimes, and it's like, oh, who else is in the room with you? It's serious. No, I said Siri. We'll go back off. So mapping will be ongoing every year once they get it started. K-8 will begin with ELA. Content areas and special areas will also begin mapping for their own departments. ENL and special ed will be represented. ENL is English as a new language, or ESL it used to be called, English as a second language in special ed. Equity and SEL, or social emotional learning standards, are going to be embedded into the maps. The Atlas software was one of the two demos reviewed last year, and they provided one place to store maps and will upload all standards. There must be accountability all building levels for implementation of the curriculum mapping. Then there was discussion about iReady, and then the after-school program. We know it on the board agenda as an IRP. It will be now re-acronymed to RISE, which is Remedial Instructional Support Education. It's not going to be focused on test prep, but it will be for loss of instruction during the pandemic. So it will focus on loss of instruction there. And that's it.
Is it changing the format? I mean, in general, you said it's no longer, it used to be focused on test prep, and now it's going to be just supporting students where they.
Well, I think
they need-
changing it, and I don't know if this was discussed, Saggy could jump in, but I think, one of the federal grants, or a couple of the federal grants that we got, was to provide instruction for loss of instruction during the pandemic. So this might be a way to get it through the federal funds and not come out of the general funds.
And in the past, was that program funded by the state, and that's why it was mainly test prep?
No, I think it was through general funds.
Yeah.
In the past. That's something that we did unique in Beacon, to get students ready for either the 3 through 8 state tests or for readings exams and so forth.
Got it.
Thank you. Kristen?
What committee am I on?
Facilities.
A long, short week. The facilities committee met last Thursday. We went through the capital plan, the project plan, the phases. I think we'll have the minutes up in a couple of weeks, but the main takeaway is that we'll be able to begin modestly this coming summer with a part of the project. There's a lot of unknowns that are out there right now: supply chain, various vulnerabilities, and costs that we have to think about. Just this time is, I think the net is, we're really glad that we did this vote. We're really glad we're proceeding, because no matter what, it still puts us ahead. But we have very realistic, attainable goals for this coming summer, and then the big pieces of the project are going to happen the following summer. Is that sort of capturing it? Anything else you want to add? I feel like I was there. I definitely remember.
We met the lead,
We
Right.
met the lead
architect.
architect.
The project
his
lead,
name-
yeah.
And she was very nice.
Yep.
And professional. And we talked about what it's going to look like for, who's going to handle what and how the project updates will occur and how we will receive communication about changes in schedule and things like that. So that's it. I know everybody's, even though it's a short week, there's long days for teachers right now with conferences and everything. So thanks to everybody for working so hard, and I hope everyone has a happy holiday.
Thank you. Craig?
I guess my first question is, are we, on your committee and mine, are we looking to do a meeting in December or kick it to January?
Didn't we agree that
I thought we
January.
decided. move it.
January, I think is
January.
when we're going to meet.
Yeah, we
Because-
I have
decided-
December 9th on the calendar for facilities.
Well, I think that we moved it because we weren't going to have, were we still going to do audit though? Because I
thought we decided, I have audit.
the claims
and
audit reports won't
facilities.
be, there will be a bigger batch than that in January. So
Right, to push
we're
it
gonna
to
do
right
everything in
before
January
the
then,
next
yeah.
meeting. So,
I have 6
January
PM on
6th.
January 6th, yeah,
Yeah.
2022. Yep.
January 6th. then.
Yep.
Yep, okay,
And
thank you.
So, yeah, everybody who's, I think the,
Policy as well.
no, policy,
Policy set for the 6th as of now.
perfect. I think that's, I mean, we can ask
The
Henry.
Policy is set for the 6th? We do it on the same night?
December 6th or January?
December 6th.
Oh,
yeah,
we're
December
talking
6th.
Board
January
meeting.
6th.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so
Or the board.
we should be
Or
good
no, there
there.
is no board
No.
meeting that night.
No,
The
Scared me for a
13th
minute.
is the board meeting.
we only
Yeah.
have one board meeting in December on the
Correct.
13.
so it'll be,
So, yeah, I marked down the 6th, so that would be
7th.
at 6 PM and then.
January 6th, 6 PM is facilities, 7 PM audit and finance.
Okay, so you
December
want to,
13th
you
is
wanna
the board
do-
meeting, and then are you going to do policy before that?
P-rolls before
No.
that.
December
December
6th at 7 PM is
Got it.
policy, and that's it. There's nothing else.
Okay, and then prawl is before this 13th.
Mhm.
Is there a possibility that the policy meeting be canceled? I don't know what policies we're gonna be looking at next.
That's fine with me. If we think we can push it till the new year, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I don't know. Did we decide, I mean, at the last meeting, we didn't know what we're gonna look at for the next
Yeah.
meeting.
so
well,
Kristen, you want to go first, right?
6, yeah, 6 PM.
And
Just
it's
for the
already this,
architect
we
engineer.
only got one more week left in November, so.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm fine with pushing it to January if we need to.
Okay,
Okay.
Sorry.
We're good. Yes, so we did have the Audit and Finance Committee meeting, and we have a position which is the internal auditor, which is a company that served us well previously but is having staffing difficulties. So we are headed in the direction of doing an RFP to see if there's somebody who can produce the necessary internal consulting that is part of that position. As you may know, many companies are having difficulty finding all the personnel that they need to do what they need to do, or to take on all the clients that they would like to take on. So last time we heard about this, that was being drafted and designed by our business office for sometime in the near future to see what we can find, who may be out there who can serve us. So we have 2 community volunteers serving on this committee actively now, as well as all the board members. And we also did a good workshop on looking at some financial data relating to state aid and how that articulates with our tax revenues over time. This is prepared from various sources by Mrs. Corderoni. We thank her for that. We will have some questions and continue this study in the future. What we're trying to do is find out who was it that said, "Don't look back, something might be catching up with you." Well, if you look into the future, something might be catching up with you from that direction as well, because of changes that have occurred in state aid and the formulas that govern what your ratio is. And I'm happy to say that most of the news lately on state aid has been pretty good, because Governor Hochul just announced today that they're coming to a settlement on the court case for equity in school finance. And her announcement contains a number of specifics about budgetary items for the state going forward over a 3-year plan. Pretty much good news, so I'm kind of encouraged. And that would be my report for today.
Thank you. Anthony?
Thank you. Good evening. The Diversity Committee met on Tuesday, November 9th. Matt and Saggy made a presentation on the current status of the diversity work in the Beacon School District. It was the meeting was done over Zoom, and there are 4. Actually, Matt, can you clarify? Are there 4 working groups or 3 working groups? Is Code of Conduct a working group?
Yep, code of conduct, curriculum, inclusive,
Yeah.
learning
Okay.
environments, and hiring.
Yep. Okay. So 4 working groups. If you're interested in the Code of Conduct working group, Matt is the facilitator there. If you're interested in the curriculum, Saggy is the facilitator there. There's inclusive learning environment. Saggy is also the facilitator there. And hiring for a diverse workforce, Bill is the facilitator for that as well. So, parents and community members and the board has now 4 opportunities to work on diversity issues in those categories. I signed up for 2 of them, so I only know those times. I don't know the other times, but for the inclusive learning environment and the curriculum, then the proposed meeting right now was December 15th, 4:30 to 5:30 for the inclusive learning environment, and December 15th, 5:45 to 6:45 for the curriculum. I might not make both of them, so, but I would encourage the board to sign up for.
What are the times one more time?
December 15th for 4:30 to 5:30 is the inclusive learning environment, and curriculum is 5:45 to 6:45. Those are both facilitated by Saggy, and I don't have the times for the other 2.
Are those by Zoom, did you say?
Are they done by Zoom?
Or are they in person?
Are they
Are
going to be
those
done by
meetings-
Zoom?
In person.
And so community members are invited to participate or to ask to participate?
Yeah, to ask to join the working groups, right?
Has the district reached out to the community, like inviting participation?
What's that?
Has the district reached out to the community to invite participation?
I mean, we've reached out through emails I send out, which go to all those few thousand people.
The parent
And
link you
we-
used, right?
what we're trying to do with the
Right.
working groups is we're trying to have it be a regular group of people
Right.
that meet. So because I think one of the issues with facilitating this group is it's like different people come to each meeting, and you know what I mean. Each meeting is almost like a thing unto itself, and so we never talked about a hard cap. But I think to have it be a productive group, we probably wouldn't want to be too far over 10 or 12 people. And I know in some of them we're getting close. I would love to have more people join the Code of Conduct Committee, but anyway, so email the person, the people that Anthony listed off, and
Yeah,
we're going to try to tackle the work that way this year.
Bill, a lot of people have signed up for the hiring diverse workforce, or no? I'm not sure. Okay. All right.
How do we sign up if we want to participate?
I think you have to contact the facilitator directly.
And who is that?
You'd contact for the hiring for diverse workforce. You contact Bill directly. For the inclusive learning, Saggy, curriculum Saggy, code of conduct Matt.
Saggy, I'm emailing you.
And end of my I donated blood today, so I think.
Thank you.
And I want to congratulate also the school district on, there were a lot of people that wanted the vaccine attended as well. Thank Meredith for volunteering as well, I think it's a big relief for those that were waiting to get the vaccine finally. So thank you for facilitating that.
Yeah. I forgot to announce our second shot we're doing in one day.
Yeah.
3 to 8 on November 30th. So, and people have to sign up for a time. So I'll send another reminder out because, anyway, but yeah, we have to talk to Dr. Smiller. We might sort of do right before winter break and then in January, second dose kind of thing, just to try it one more time. So I think we did see some folks felt better doing it through the school than a pharmacy somewhere or something. So we might try to tap into that again.
End the report. Thank you.
Thank you. John?
I've got none this week.
Thank you. Jasmine?
Just to say happy Thanksgiving to everyone.
Thank you.
I forgot about that.
Alyssa?
So as mentioned, the next policy committee was to be December 6th, but we will reconvene to see if we want to push it into the new year based on, it's a busy time and we haven't identified the policies that we'll review next. So that might be a good idea. And happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving. Laura?
I just wanted to say that the school-based health clinic, the presentation for that, I have not forgotten. I've been chasing it down through Kelly Lappin, and she is reaching out to, I think the woman's name is Erica, the person who gave the presentation, and so hopefully this week I will be able to send it to you. The woman was out of town, so we weren't able to get it before now. That's it. Oh, and, well, I should mention, the next public relations meeting, advocacy and legislative meeting is at 6 p.m. on the 13th, before the school board meeting.
The 13th.
Got it.
Mhm.
Yep. Okay. I just have a few things. Craig, I wanted to let you know that I did email Chris White about the crosswalk. I heard back from Colin Malone that basically that they were waiting for Meadow Ridge to build a sidewalk on the other side of the street, and then they would connect that sidewalk to our sidewalk with a crosswalk. So I wrote back and I asked if that was wishful thinking or if that was actually, sort of on schedule. And he wrote that if it were built, it would be on private property. The committee recommended it to the owners and they were amenable, and sent me the contact information for the person. So I think that was kicking the can a little bit, but
Yeah.
if you want to kick it to the PRAL committee, we can,
Yeah.
if the board is interested in supporting a letter
Yeah.
asking for that, we can.
Well, thanks for following up.
Sure.
My impression is that there is something of a sidewalk on both sides.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure how much, but I'll go look at it pretty soon to refresh my memory. But I did take photos a couple years ago.
Uh-huh.
I actually brought this issue up a couple years ago.
Well, and he said that it had been brought to the Traffic and Safety Committee and that they had recommended that, that they had, somehow it had become waiting for the sidewalk to be built.
Yeah, I'm wondering if it has to do with like where they want to where the traffic committee wants to put the crosswalk versus us who weren't in those deliberations think it should go. You know what I mean? I mean, we could definitely verify real quick on Google Earth if it's something there, but I mean,
Yeah.
if they think it has to be somewhere and they're saying there's no sidewalk there, but it should be here, then maybe that's where it's breaking down.
Right. Well, I'll forward you this email and I'll forward it to the entire board so everyone has it. And then if you if you want to bring it back to the board to try to see if anyone's interested in advocacy around it, you can. The
Thank you, Meredith, for following up
Sure,
on that.
no problem. And yeah, the only other thing was that just to say that the vaccination clinic was really, I thought, really well run, and the nurses were incredible with the kids. Some of them were really nervous, and the nurses dealt with it really well. And I was proud of our district for offering it. On to new business.
Yeah, so I did want to, well, first let me apologize for adding this so late, but I did want to add tonight for us to have a discussion about possible issues for legislative advocacy for the upcoming LHEC legislative panel. So this is the Lower Hudson Education Coalition, and they're having a panel on December 13th. And it's going to be with senators and assembly members, basically talking about, you know, the education topics that they're paying attention to. And there's an opportunity, and I did forward you the invitation, there's an opportunity when you register to, you know, to put in ahead of time the questions you want to ask or the issues that you want to see addressed. My plan essentially was, it's 6:30 to 8:30. So I know we're having the PRAL meeting that night. I still can't figure out if I should say PRAL, PRAL. That meeting, we're having it at 6. And it should take about 45 minutes, and then I was going to jump onto this panel. And I know it'll put me late to the school board meeting, but
We could postpone the PRAL meeting.
maybe
mean-
we'll do that, yeah.
It's December. I don't know that we have anything
Super pressing, this is true, this is
Seems like we're
true.
trying to fit a lot into 2 hours.
Yeah, it's true. So maybe, yeah, let's we can have that conversation
Okay.
by email. But so essentially, I think this is sort of an opportunity for us to start that conversation about issues that we feel are important this year and that we want to see advocacy around and movement on. And I emailed to the board a list of possible issues, by no means definitive or authoritative, but just things that had been on our radar. And I would like to add this to the, this is a really long introduction. I'd like to add this to the agenda so that we could talk about it and come up with, you know, what we would like to see discussed as a board at this panel. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just say motion to,
Motion to approve the
okay,
advocacy list.
a motion to approve the advocacy list.
Second.
Are there any other comments or questions?
Is it possible to make this a working document? I looked at the
You should
link
be
and
able to
everything.
edit it, are you not?
No, I mean, I feel like to evolve over the next month, just because
Absolutely,
I have nothing to offer tonight, but
No,
it's
yes.
because I haven't been thinking about it at all.
absolutely. And I think, yeah, I think it's good to just get it on everybody's radar ahead of time. And if it feels like it's appropriate for us not to have to discuss everything in this forum, then definitely let's work on it.
Cool.
Do
So,
you want to read the list?
should
just so
we
it's
didn't
clear?
vote to approve it.
I know,
Over in comments and questions.
yeah, well, and I thought it might be good just for the record
Okay.
to read the.
Sure.
It's not a long list.
Sure. Update and improve the foundation aid formula. There's also there a link to recent developments. Allowing no excuse absentee ballots to improve voter turnout and engagement. Exceptions to the New York State Open Meetings Law to allow for virtual committee meetings. Statewide limits on school start times. Board member stipends to reduce obstacles to participation, and free school meals for all public school students. So yeah, so it's basically just based on things that we've discussed, advocated around, things that there is actually movement on. But obviously, I'm open. We're, you know, since this is a board effort, to whatever people feel is the most important. And it's not like we can bring up every single issue. It's really more about what rises to the top for us. Like, what do we really want our state legislators to discuss with us at this meeting?
One of the things I would like to add is something about phasing in or coming up with a benchmark system to see when we could do away with masks.
They're piloting something in Massachusetts right now around this.
Right. The Lower Hudson Superintendent group, I wasn't involved in the writing of this, but they wrote a letter and sent it to the governor and all the state representatives asking what Anthony's talking about for some sort of adoption to like a metrics-based approach to changing some of the COVID policies, including mask wearing. And they did mention Massachusetts in the letter. So I can send that to the board.
Yeah.
It's pretty well written. I may have a couple quibbles with it, but I think from the superintendent level, we're anxious that I think we would like to see the state set some metrics, so it doesn't just become every district figure it out on your, which we're kind of used to, but because then I think it will get a little chaotic. And so I think just metrics around a lot of the things we do with COVID, but mask wearing obviously is a big one.
Another thing is how to supplement the funding that we've been receiving for the last 3 years, or will receive for the last 3 years once the federal funds, like the ESSER and run out. Is that going to be something where we have to fill that gap now, or is it going to be something where the state could help supplement?
That's a good one.
So state compensation to avoid a financial cliff, that sort of.
I
Yeah.
don't have the eloquency of wording it
That
right now,
sounds like
but
what-
something about, when the federal funds, the federal grants go away.
Sudden budget gaps.
Yeah, how
Yeah.
can we,
I suppose those are tending to be kind of temporary anyway, but they could create a problem when you suddenly come to an absence of it.
Well, so, I mean, I think especially with like the tutoring and other sort of student supports that we've added, I don't think we want to just like
Suddenly.
pull them out.
Exactly.
Another is graduation requirements for graduation. I know that the state is looking at, the regencies and whether or not they should still be utilized and so forth. But coming up with a graduation requirement, having like some type of dialogue. I know that they were talking to, they started this conversation pre-COVID pandemic, where they met with some areas, and now they're starting to have that conversation back up, but making sure that that's publicized so there could be constituent and stakeholder input.
Another thing that would be really helpful on this document is if we could sort of arrange it in terms of priority. I mean, and everybody can kind of look at it.
I'm just throwing ideas out there based
Yeah,
on.
definitely. And they're here. I would love to know from everyone what they feel like the biggest to lowest priority would be for discussion.
I think that I think that given a panel, there's limited time, but it's an ongoing thing. So I think that maybe there could be priorities, but like whatever we think is a realistic thing. We've been to that. Didn't we go to that panel once before?
Actually, that was a little bit different, but the Dutchess Community or Dutchess County School Board Association arranged this legislative breakfast that, this is more, I think, for the Lower Hudson Education Coalition to create their lobbying priorities around it. And they're a very active group.
They're super organized.
Yeah.
So another one I would say is decoupling APPR to the state tests.
A permanent decoupling.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, is there news on that? What is happening this year? Is it still?
State tests are set to go forth. I know they're doing the regencies in January.
But is the APPR decoupled from the state test this year, or
They haven't said anything yet. I don't
I
believe.
don't think it is.
They haven't said anything yet.
So that's something that I think would rise to the top for me.
I know the
Yes.
state granted a waiver for the independent evaluator to districts that applied to it, so I believe that they're set to go forth because they're having the regencies in January for the regions. So typically, if they have that, they'll do the grade 3 through 8.
APPR is an evaluation rubric, right? That's used to, and there's different things that fit into it.
Annual
And
performance.
it's basically tied to teacher performance evaluations. And then in the when the Common Core was sort of rolled out, it was directly linked to the students' performance on state tests was more closely linked to how teachers were evaluated, even if they weren't in subjects that they taught and things like that. So it's been this kind of evolving and not particularly clean process for a few years. And so what Anthony is suggesting is that we as a board say that these two things should be separated. That
First,
Coupled.
a lot of parents are opting their kids out of the state test because they know that it's for evaluation of teachers, right? Whereas if they decouple it, the state test could be another data point for how students are making progress towards the learning standards. However, they're tying it into teacher evaluations, which if they decouple it, break it apart, it may be another data point that could be utilized. That's one method. I know Kristen was saying another one as well. I mean, that's where I'm coming from at.
there's also the from a student perspective, if a teacher feels like this test is going to reflect on them, then that creates a context in which it's much more likely that a teacher will just teach the test, so the students do well on the test, instead of doing broader learning where the test would just measure where they are in the, like a real, like Anthony said, a data point versus the level of anxiety that teachers feel, so that these students need to do well on this test because it's going to reflect on them. So they just focus on test taking practice versus learning.
Another point that I would like to see us advocate for is the mental health. The county has received all this funding, and what they're doing is they're coming up with programs. In the most recent future, they're coming up with programs, and then they're telling to assist schools, but they're not getting school input before developing programs. There is a shortage in New York State, especially the lower Hudson Valley, with partial day programs, which is for mental health issues where it may not be hospitalization. It's a step down for hospitalization, but there's no rooms available. And students really need that stepping stone before they could integrate back into the community school or the school district or another program. So it's falling upon districts to find programs for students that are experiencing mental health needs. So like looking at one, can we get some more hospitalization for kids that need it because they're just going in and being sent home in an unsafe environment because they don't have the facilities to house it? And two, they don't have partial day programs available for students. There's wait lists in the area right now that are to the new year already for students that are experiencing mental health issues right now. So I would like to see that in the top.
Will you restate that? I'm sorry.
Addressing mental health issues
Yeah.
or capacity or issues.
Addressing
Well, it
mental
sounds
health
like
care
you're talking,
capacity.
it sounds like he's talking about the fact that there are funds available right
that are
now
being used to.
in the county that are earmarked for mental health. And rather than gathering education stakeholder input about how to spend those funds, they're using them for programs that are not necessarily addressing the most pressing need. It sounds like what you're saying the most pressing need is that there are students who are experiencing or in crisis, mental health crisis, who need professional support, not necessarily inpatient facility, but some sort of partial day where they're getting the support they need and they're not being sent home unmonitored, but they're not expected to be like in a mainstream school environment.
Right.
And that the county could be meeting that capacity need, but is instead not spending on that. Is that what you're saying?
I love the summary.
Are we making a list and adding things to it, like
Yeah.
Santa Claus here?
It's a Google Doc.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I emailed it. Yeah.
Okay. Can I give you another one?
Yes, you.
Yeah,
can.
when it comes to capital programs, we know what those are since we're in the middle of one. But there's also certain things that can be done under an operating budget. But there's a real limit on how much money can be spent on physical plant improvements under your capital budget. I don't know all the details of this. I think Anne Marie probably has some background on this issue. And I'm wondering if I recall correctly from some NISBA conventions, there was a move on to try to increase that amount, or at least to increase it for larger districts with numerous buildings, so that you didn't have to do a capital program every time you wanted to do a significant size, but not huge. There's a range. And I recall it was $100,000 at one point. I don't know if it still is. I think it might be beneficial if that number were bigger. It's the same number for one school district or a 20 school district, as I understand it from the discussion before, which seems unrealistic. So maybe you're aware of some initiatives in that direction that are still going on, but that is something that I think we would find useful. Of course, being able to pay for it and put it in your budget is another question, but right now you don't even have the option, so. I'm not sure exactly how to describe this
Is that a, yeah.
Just
legally, but
Increase general fund
increase the amount of
limit for capital.
physical work that can be done under an operating budget, basically. Small projects, yeah. But we do these in very often. It's not just repair work, but it's like we have the opportunity to do something that would make a difference. And you have to wait to the next capital program, and that could be quite a while, so.
Okay.
Just to circle back though to Anthony's thing, what are they, do you have is there a source of information about, because like for the funds that we're getting, Anne Marie has to sort of link it to like how it's earmarked and what we're spending. Is there a way to find out what the county's spending it on? And what are they doing instead of getting, like what programs are they designing? And what are they prioritizing?
I have to check specifically with Dutchess County. I could speak more about Ulster, but I know that the grants that they're receiving are similar. So I would have to just look that up for Dutchess County to kind of see specifically what
Like
Dutchess
where would
County
you look
did.
it up though? Like that's.
You could go on the Office of Mental Health for Dutchess County and look to see what they're offering there. You could go
Make a request
underneath.
to them to explain how they're spending the money. maybe.
Yeah.
Because it's specifically earmarked for education, right?
There are, in Ulster County, I know, yes, I could say absolutely. Dutchess County, I believe the funds are from the same source, which are tied to supporting schools meet mental health needs of kids.
Okay.
They have a mobile mental health support apparatus sort of that any district can call into and provide sort of like on the spot mental health support. We've used it many times.
So are you finding the way that they're spending like what's available to you in Dutchess County to be?
I don't know if that's through new funding. I just know they've done that for the last few years. I think they've done some funding around Second Step, which is like a curriculum. But I understand what Anthony's saying. It is a regional. It is a really intense regional thing here for finding spots for students who need this kind of support.
I mean, for instance, like St. Francis or Mid-Hudson Regional used to have a psych center where they had beds for students. They no longer have it. Kingston Hospital used to have the same thing. They don't have it. So
Right.
kids up in Ulster, which is higher than Dutchess, have to go all the way down to Westchester Hospital for psych evaluations and or hospitalization. But that hospital is meeting Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess, Orange, Ulster.
And this is a nationwide issue right now, I think, where
Huge
like mental
issue.
health services are like completely
They're maxed
absent.
out,
Yeah.
Huge issue. I mean, in Rockland County Psychiatric Center, RCPC is one of the leaders and big ones in the area, along with the Astor. But they have partials, but they're full, right? And I know there's a work shortage of, social workers and psychologists and stuff, but if they're finding them to assist with something districts typically have the support staff in schools where they don't need to push into the school, but they need to work with the school to identify possibly kids that could need that outside community support, right? Not just the kid, but the families as well.
Okay, yeah, that's good.
Anthony, did you have something?
It's not very articulate, but I was just kind of wondering, with all the shortages in the professions, whether it's worth deliberating on how we can better prepare our students for some of these occupations that need folks. I don't necessarily think that when you graduate from high school that you're fully prepared for college or even know what the options are in trades. And sometimes you have a family member that knows what's going on or can vent to you or you know the, and I do know that New York State Labor and Statistics runs analysis all the time on occupations that need that are in demand, right? And I think those can be appealing to some students that don't quite know exactly what they want to do. I still don't know what I want to do when I grew up, but I think I'm wondering if it's worth deliberating on that to some degree. Like, is it?
So would that be in the form of funding?
Yeah, I guess. I mean,
Legislatively, like, what would the ask be?
um, I go to this, look at how hard it is to start a CTE program for schools that don't have one, right? So, but that's me. I don't know what other options are there. I also don't want to take away funding from other programs that need it as well, but maybe an additional aside of funding for something to address occupations that are in dire need in New York State. How to better, I know healthcare is a huge demand everywhere.
I think that could fall underneath graduation requirements,
just
right? It's a
thinking
career
maybe,
college
yeah.
readiness piece,
Yeah,
looking at the need and then doing a needs assessment and then going forth and tailoring like C-Tech programs or career tech programs or something to that and start offering that. And that could be, some kids aren't doing that because they're worried about the graduation requirements.
hmm
So I think it could fall underneath that part.
yeah, but additional funding to schools that want to start those programs as well. Because that's the other component of that. You can plan, but I mean, and I think the CTE website on NICEAD has a lot of different occupations and all that stuff. But to start it, you would need.
The hard part is if they help fund for the start, I'd be
Yeah.
careful with the wording of start because then how do you sustain it?
Okay.
And being a district that's not super large, the want or desire for that specific may not always be there,
That's,
right? So then you're wasting funds. So
it's a good point. It's a good point. I mean, I do think that if it has some sort of sustained support, it would help with the New York State economy. It'd have many positive effects on New York State as a whole.
Well, I feel like this is a great list, and maybe if there are things that they don't pick up, we could decide to.
Well, yeah, so it's important to say, like, I'll add some of the big ones that have risen to the top in the conversation when I register. I'll do my best to take really good notes and come back and talk to the board about it. But I also feel like this is a jumping off point for the February meeting, the NYSBA in-person legislative lobby day in Albany on the 9th. I've never attended one of those. I don't know what it's like. I don't know if a lot of board members end up going. I feel like this year feels like it's going to be, or this February feels like it's going to be a pretty critical time because this hasn't happened in a while and there's a lot changing in the state. And I plan on going, but I think that we should definitely use this list and refine this list with an eye toward that day in February.
Meredith, did you go to the one that was in Fishkill when they had a couple of legislators there?
In Fishkill? No.
It was on a Saturday or a Saturday morning, I believe.
Oh, yeah, the legislative breakfast. Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but then it was like trying to hear from the district constituents, and like not all legislators came, but their
Their representatives.
administrative
So,
assistant
yeah.
representative
Yeah,
came.
I've been to a few of them. I think I have a feeling the one in Albany is even more kind of like handled.
Yeah.
But I still think that they're very worthwhile to attend. I put it on my calendar. I would like to go as well.
I mean, I think it's worth the lift. I've been the one, but not for a school, for a different industry occupation. And you know, sometimes you get that connection, you get that rapport, and that opens dialogue. So that's, I think,
Yeah.
the key of those breakfasts is just to
Exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
I
Make
think
those
it would
connections.
behoove us to prepare for that and maybe have like,
Yes.
okay, here's our top three,
Yes.
here's why,
Yes.
and then find out who would be there, and then address the letters so we can hand it to them as well.
Yes.
And so then we can ask for follow-up, right?
Absolutely.
100%, yeah.
So maybe we see what gets picked up by the coalition and then decide what we want to do separately. We'll have enough time to.
Yeah, I
prepare
think
for
it'll
that.
be a good gauge of what, what has an inertia behind it or movement behind it.
All right.
Okay,
I s-
thank you.
So I still have this motion open.
second.
I second
And
it.
it's been
Oh, you seconded?
seconded. We had
Okay.
comments and questions. Are there any last minute comments,
No,
questions?
thank
about
thank you,
any-
Flora, for bringing it up.
Very good conversation. Yeah, good conversation around it. Thank you. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. Okay, so then, lastly, we have our consent agenda.
Could I make one more comment?
Of course.
An email just came to my inbox. For anyone who took the PSAT, scores will be emailed on December 7th. So for anyone who maybe missed the email, keep your eye out on December 7th for an email with your child's PSAT score.
So the use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. Are there any items that any board members would like to have pulled to be voted on separately from the consent?
I'd like to pull 11.03, 11.14, 11.15, and 11.17.
Okay, are there any others?
11.09.
Any others? Can I have a motion to approve 11.01 through 11.16, less 11.03, 11.09, 11.14, and 11.15?
So moved.
Second.
Comments or questions?
I wanted to comment that item 11.10 is a 3-year memo of agreement with the Beacon Teachers Association. We've
hap-
worked on for some time, and that's a great achievement.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm really happy to see that on the agenda tonight. Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm in favor, passes 9-0. Can I have a motion to approve 11.03?
I'd like to make a motion to table 11.03, 11.14, 11.15, 11.17.
Is there a
Second.
Second, okay,
Melissa?
beat me to it.
Are there comments or questions?
I think there's revisions that are needed for those products of those 4 agenda items. So I'm tabling them for revisions.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. I actually forgot to also say congratulations to our 10-year recipients.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
You're part of the
Congratulations.
agenda. And then can I have a motion to approve 11.09?
So moved.
Second.
So my question here, this is a usual thing that we do, the unpaid tax warrant, and I think it merits some explanation. It says it's a list, but we actually don't have a list of the individual properties or taxpayers, right? I mean, they're there someplace, right? but it's not on this.
Yes, the report gets generated from the tax software, so we ask the board as a resolution to do the totals. And then once the board does vote on that, then City of Beacon receives theirs and the county receives it for fish stormwater.
And we receive, they make good on those unpaid bills, is that right? Is that,
They make us whole, yes,
Yeah.
after 2 years, after a year and then 2 years. And you also notice a 2% penalty on it, which when they collect the bill, we receive.
thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm in favor, passes 9-0. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Flora, is there a second?
Second.
Is that Alyssa?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I'm in favor, passes 9-0. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.